When you stop eating, your body starts to try and find out where it's going to be pulling its energy from. For the first 12 hours, your body is still processing the fuel that you took in. And around that 12-hour mark, your body starts to make this metabolic switch where it realizes I'm not going to have enough fuel from what I've taken in. I need to go after these glycogen stores that I have in my liver, throughout my body. So it starts to burn through the glycogen that you have in your body. Hey everyone, Derrick Hines here. Welcome to the podcast where I'll share with you the patterns, insights, research, and technologies that we use in my own pain and performance practice to help people improve their health, speed their healing, and increase their longevity. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy it. All right, good day, my friends. Welcome to another episode of the Pain and Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Derrick Hines. If you're new to this show, what we do is basically take the latest research and technology breakthroughs and kind of share those with you in the most actionable way that we can, so you can actually leave this episode with something that you can implement that improves your health or your healing or your life in some way. Today, I'm talking about fasting. I've gotten so many questions on the mechanisms of action of fasting and what's actually happening in my body whenever I fast. So we're going to break some of that down. One of the myths that I hear a lot with fasting is that it's just about weight loss and calorie restriction. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I and many of my family members fast quarterly, and we don't do that to lose weight at all. We do that for the metabolic improvements, the inflammatory and cell improvements that we get from going into fasting state. So let's break down what happens. When you stop eating, your body starts to try and find out where it's going to be pulling its energy from. So for the first, let's say 12 hours, your body is still processing the fuel that you took in. And around that 12-hour mark, your body starts to make this metabolic switch where it realizes I'm not going to have enough fuel from what I've taken in recently. I need to go after these glycogen stores that I have in my liver, throughout my body, and in my muscles. So it starts to burn through the glycogen that you have in your body. At this point, between like 12 and 24 hours, your insulin starts to fall. Your body starts to shift a little bit from using glucose as it starts to burn through that glycogen and starts to use fat oxidation. This is where ketone production starts to increase. We will start to see this increase different times for different people, but let's say roughly around the 24-hour mark, depending on how much glycogen you have stored, we'll start to see ketone levels rise. Those will continue to rise significantly for about 72 hours, give or take. So this is called the metabolic switch. It's where your body is no longer using glucose and it is now using fat for fuel. And that's why we see ketone production. When we continue deeper into fasting state, so somewhere around 48 hours to 72 hours, our body is using ketones as the primary fuel. So it's breaking down fat cells for fuel. And our body starts to enter something called autophagy, or cellular cleanup mechanism. Autophagy is where your body is going in and kind of breaking down these damaged cells and using the components of them to fuel. Now, when we get to this state, our body is really smart about what it does. It does not just target healthy cells. Our body's selective about what cells it's breaking down, and that's very commonly these damaged DNA cells, these inflammatory cells, these precancerous cells. So our body initially goes after these weakened or abnormal cells to use them as fuel, which is a superpower, guys. This is the real benefit of getting into autophagy, is that any of these cells that were going to lead to problems in the future, you have this button built into your anatomy that you can press where your body goes and cleans everything up and recycles all these damaged cells to rebuild new, healthy, efficient cells that can produce energy. This was such an important thing that the Nobel Prize in 2016 was given on the mechanisms of autophagy. That's how important autophagy is in our body. When we get into this phase and we stay there, so this is from 72 hours on. When everyone asks me, is time restricted eating or fasting, intermittent fasting helpful? It can be because it helps to stabilize blood sugar. But we're not usually getting deep into this autophagy phase where you're actually getting the deeper benefits of inflammation reduction, precancer cells clearance, damaged DNA clearance. We have to hit that 72-hour mark. So if you look at something that we use, the fasting mimicking diet, what you find is that they run that for 5 days because they're like, look, when we get into 72 hours, where our body's starting to get all these benefits, we want to live there for a couple of days. So that is where the real superpower of this is. And when we see patients get to that level, we see inflammation reduction, we see insulin sensitivity improve, you get this spike in stem cells. And that's been shown because cells that were previously not functioning, organs that were previously not functioning, after we do a few of these rounds of 5 days of a fasting mimicking protocol, we see those return to function. So that is showing us how much regenerative power something like fasting gives our body. Because when our body goes in and it clears out and breaks down those cells, it knows it needs to replace them. And so that's where we see this upregulation of natural stem cell production go. In some studies, I've seen upward of 300 to 500% stem cell production after a prolonged fast of more than 72 hours. So it's an amazing button that you have. And I think we're designed, the reason it's so helpful to clean us, to clear inflammation, to get rid of these damaged cells is we're supposed to do this. There's been many studies on using this to basically resolve all of the signs of diabetes because it can get us back into metabolic health, and the repair that it does to our body allows us to improve our insulin function, and we no longer have signs or symptoms of diabetes. I don't know that they're using the word cure, but if you don't have signs and symptoms of diabetes, that's an amazing outcome from doing something like this. Yes, we do see people lose fat cells when they go through this because initially those cells are not serving any purpose. And your body's like, well, I'm going to go after these kind of useless cells and break those down. But I don't think that's the main objective whenever it comes to fasting. So if somebody is metabolically unhealthy, they have diabetes, they have obesity, they have a history of chronic inflammation. Any of these things, I think a periodic fasting mimicking program should be on the list because it's such a powerful thing that you can do in your body. My one line is like, I prefer fasting mimicking over pure fasting because it preserves some hormone balance, especially in women, and it preserves muscle mass. That's my main reason why I almost give a fasting mimicking protocol a leg up than just like a water only fast. If you're doing that for other reasons than health, religious reasons, or any of that, fine. Just be very conscious of you prioritizing protein when you come out of it and continue to exercise while you're on it, even if it's kind of low and slow. Keep using your muscles so that your body doesn't start to target those muscle cells very much. Fasting's not a starvation tool. That's not what this is for. It's a reset button to give your cells the ability to clean everything up, replenish themselves, and get back to functioning better. So that's what's actually happening whenever you go through these phases. If you have questions about fasting, it's one of the topics that I think I have paid more attention to over the last decade than I would have ever imagined. But I hope that helps. Consider scheduling a fasting mimicking reset at some point over your next quarter. My family does it every quarter. We do it 4 times a year. We often use Prolon, but I've been experimenting with some other forms of it. I cannot see a world where we're not doing this in the near next few decades. It's just that powerful when you look at the studies on what it can do. So I hope that helps. Remember, do one thing to get a little healthier today. And you know what? That might be, holding off on food for a little bit longer. But have a great day, everybody. I hope y'all are doing well.